Right, so this is gonna be another very short video. You might notice if you watch this channel regularly that I've kind of made them a little shorter lately. Sometimes deliberately and sometimes just out of circumstance, but this one I'll try and keep this one short as well. Um, the British GP Silverstone 2025. One of the better races for the year normally. And this one was pretty good. I mean, the safety cars incessantly, I guess, put a damper on it a bit, but I would argue that they were reasonably necessary in this case. So you can't really complain, and it's just the nature of the racing sometimes. But a lot of the race was under the safety car. And unfortunately, to an extent that and what resulted from one of the safety cars did then make the result somewhat predictable. But suffice to say, let's recap quickly. First, let me mention, even though it's not to do the race, Verstappen's qualifying. I would say that was pretty impressive. Again, love him or hate him, to get a low downforce car like that, and when we say low, it was very low downforce, to go through the Maggots Beckett's complex at over 300 kilometers per hour with, I would say, less downforce than your competitors. That was pretty impressive. That guy has a level of car control that is, I don't want to use the word supernatural, but I've heard a couple of the more famous commentators like Peter Windsor and so on, and Cameron and all those guys. It's like he's an alien. And I'll tell you, that guy has some serious car control skills. It's kind of pretty wild. But at the end of the day, the McLarens, as expected, despite that blip in qualifying, were dominant. And the fact that it was rainy just amplified the fact that they had a lot more downforce, and they basically just ran away and hit from the rest of the field. Really and truly, the only contest was between them to see who would have won. I'll address the Piastri penalty up front. I am in the camp that firmly, very, very firmly think that was a deserved penalty. In the same way that I thought Russell deserved a penalty for his antics with the safety car, this one by Piastri was even worse. That is crazy. Breaking from a little over 200 kilometers per hour, I think the data suggested, to 50. You're bleeding off about 150 kilometers per hour, which is almost 100 miles per hour. In the rain, that heavy braking in the rain, you can't do that. That is insane, and that could have been a massive accident. Yes, Verstappen avoided him on the right, and if you look on the videos, you would realize that within a second of that, Norris came up full blast on the left and had to be braking as well. And if you watch the full FIA footage of the race, Formula F1 footage of the race, the F1 channel that I watch, and watch a cool down room, you'll hear Hülkenberg talking about it as well. And Hülkenberg also mentioned that it caused a big pile up around the back, and he almost got in an accident because of the accordion effect of everybody having to brake. So I think what Piastri did there was ridiculous. He should never have done that. And I will argue somewhat out of character. I mean, I'm not even sure why he did it. There's a lot of arguments and we can speculate. Was he just warming up the brakes because it was getting cold in the rain? That's possible. But that's not the point at which you do that, because bear in mind the safety car light had gone off. You can't do that after the safety car light has gone. You're not even supposed to do it behind the safety car, which is what Russell did. But you definitely cannot do it when the safety car light has gone off and you're about to restart. You cannot have such a massive speed reduction. It just can't. That is textbook by definition, driving erratically. So I really don't know why he did it. Could he have just been trying to, could he have been concerned that Max was close behind him and could have attacked him at the restart? Could have been, but that would be kind of a big miscalculation, because I think it was obvious that Max's car did not have the downforce that he would have needed in the wet to be competitive, and so Oscar could have gotten away from him. Could he have just been doing it to try to make Max get a penalty by passing him? I don't know. It's possible as well. But regardless, whatever game he was playing, I can tell you, he paid the price, because he gave up what would have probably been a certain win. Because I don't think Norris would have passed him. Norris was ultimately ended up being a bit faster than him, but I think if he was behind him, I don't think I think the team would have probably intervened and not let them fight, especially in the wet. So I think Norris probably would have ended up second had Piastri not done that. No, having said that, he then really is where I guess my disappointment is. Not only is he not acknowledging that he screwed up, but he then asks on the radio for the team to switch positions. On what planet do you think that would be legitimate, a legitimate request? You've made a mistake, you've gotten a penalty for it, and you're now asking the team to step in to give you back the place that you've lost because of your penalty? No, bro. Sorry. I was very disappointed in that radio call from Piastri. And again, Piastri is a guy I like. I think he's a really good driver. I think he's absolutely a generational talent, and probably will become a real force to be reckoned with as time passes. But one of the things I like about him is actually his character and how he goes about his racing and how he deals with situations. This one, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I'm not sure the pressure of the fight with Norris, because Norris won the last race and closed the gap. I don't know what's going on there, but that was just a big miscalculation on his part, and he paid the price for it, and rightly so, in my opinion. Norris, fortunately for him, inherited that win, because as I said, I don't think he would have been able to pass Piastri necessarily. Even if he had the pace, I don't think he would have been allowed to. And so, good win for him. And he really has some momentum in the championship now. He's now, looking pretty good. Verstappen in fifth wasn't a terrible result in terms of the overall scheme of things, but terrible from the point of view that he started on pole. But it is what it is. An uncharacteristic mistake from him on one of the restarts when he spun the car. But I think he might have been annoyed by that whole situation with Piastri as well. Who knows? But still, as a professional, that was a mistake. Uncharacteristic, because he's so good in the wet. But it is what it is. And he actually did pretty well, in my opinion, to recover back to fifth, because I think he had gotten down to 10th or 11th or 12th or something like that, as far back as that, immediately after the spin. But I think there's a couple of people pitted in front of him, and then he made some passes and got back up to fifth. So more good credit to him. Hamilton drove a solid race. Can't complain, made some good passes, did well. He didn't seem happy with his car, but at the same time, he produced a decent result. Mercedes, boy, bad day for them. Not sure I understand that tire choice. I mean, going on hards in the wet, in damp conditions, even if you think it's drying off and you're gonna try for a long stint. You have the same weather data that McLaren and everybody else has. Hard in cold, damp conditions. I think that was that was also a miscalculation, and George was nowhere because he just slid right off after that. So I didn't see the sense of that one at all. I guess the story really would have been Hülkenberg on his podium. Full congratulations to him. He's a good driver. And I mean, he waited a long time for it. And he's produced some really good results, even since this year. He's had, I think, 3 or 4 races where he started like in the bottom five. So, like from say 15 to 20 down, and finished up in the top 10 or even top 5. So he really gains a lot. Where he's weak is in qualifying, which is strange considering that he tends to be a fast guy over a single lap. But the stake is just nowhere in terms of qualifying. But the fact that he's making up that amount of places in the race is impressive in my opinion, and he absolutely deserved that third place. That podium is excellent, and congratulations to him. I'm a long time watcher of F1, and that was a well deserved. I literally cheered and clapped, for that. I was a bit disappointed, I have to say, in watching the podium ceremony, the prize giving, that Piastri and Norris didn't seem to be, including him in the celebration. They didn't seem to be congratulating. I was a bit disappointed in their reaction to his podium. Considering that I think Max and all of those other people were congratulating him down on the grid when they stopped. I was in part, at the end, I was a little disappointed in how Piastri and Norris treated him during the podium ceremony, but it is what it is. Um, it was such a strange race in terms of the constant safety cars, the bad conditions, the variable conditions. Kind of hard to really pass much judgment. Call up into disappointing again. Lawson disappointing again. Sonoda, the usual suspects. Stroll actually drove fairly well. Yeah, he benefited from the fact that he qualified poorly and hence had some softs, which did help him a bit when it came time to switch from intermediates to slicks. But still, give credit where credit is due, and he did drive well. He faded towards the end because the softs had started to go off, but he lost a couple of positions, I think. But overall, I think he drove well. Generally speaking, it was for a race that I look forward to a lot. British Grand Prix is a fast race, tends to be an exciting race. It wasn't a great race in my opinion, and as I said, Piastri just kind of put a bit of a damp on it for me. But overall, it is what it is. Let me close with my view on the overall championship and where potentially Verstappen should go, because that seems to be the flavor of the month. Firstly, I think I kind of might be repeating myself here in terms of the championship. I think it's a foregone conclusion that McLaren will become the Constructors' Champion. I will say that the Drivers' Championship is looking a little more interesting because whereas it seemed as if Norris had really started fading, he's coming back, which is good. He's made some strong progress and gains against Piastri. And so the Drivers' Championship certainly is not a foregone conclusion. And I think we'll see a battle. It will seesaw back and forth, and we'll see who has the advantage on different points for the rest of the year, because it's a long season. We're just at the halfway point now, really. But it's certainly not unforeseeable that Norris can fight back and can regain the lead in the Drivers' Championship. We'll see. Verstappen, the likelihood of that is, I would not say zero, but I would say very slim. Red Bull would have to almost transform the car, and the fact of the matter is, based on budget and based on what's coming up for 26 and where their attention will be in terms of their engineering time and wind tunnel time and so on, I don't see them being able to invest the resources into improving this car. I think they'll be focusing on the 26 car. And I think whatever Verstappen has to work with now is pretty much it, barring some little minor things. And, naturally, I think they'll try and refine the package that they have now, because the fact is, this package now that they're running is a pretty big upgrade that was put on the car a couple meets back. And so what they probably will be doing is just refining it and getting the best of it. But that is in not no way, shape, or form even remotely going to get them ahead of McLaren under any circumstances. So I think Verstappen, notwithstanding his ability to I think outdrive the rest of the field, including the McLaren drivers, if the right circumstance presents itself, it's not going to change the championship situation for him. Having said that, it will segue into I do think he should leave Red Bull based on what I see here. Now, should he go to Mercedes or should he go to Aston Martin? The Aston Martin situation is, I would say, on paper, the most tempting. One, essentially, you have a team owner and ownership structure, not just with Lawrence Stroll, who is very wealthy and has a very, very strong desire to win, but the Aramco, the Saudi Arabian government, they basically is a bottomless pit of resources. And even though there's budget caps, the fact of the matter is those can be manipulated, and certainly from a salary standpoint, you can work around that. And so, from a financial perspective, there's no question that the Aston Martin team would be attractive. Number two, Adrian Newey. Nothing really can be said much beyond that he's the greatest in the history of the world in terms of car design, and I believe will be ultimately design a successful Aston Martin car. And number three, they're gonna have the Honda engine, and Honda is proven, absolutely 100% proven, to make good engines. So and they know turbo engines well. So one would think that the stars would align, and they have clearly expressed an interest in hiring Verstappen. That's also factual. So I think by the numbers, one would be inclined to say go with Aston Martin. Having said that, Mercedes makes a strong case, because even though the last few years have been atrocious for Mercedes in terms of chassis, they've made some big steps lately and the car has improved. Is it at its peak? No. Is it comparable to McLaren? Absolutely not. But then neither is anybody else. And I'd say that Mercedes has made significant strides in that area. They've obviously identified a number of their key weaknesses and are making changes. That's number one. Number two, I do think that in terms of turbo engines, they're at least on par with Honda, and in certain situations may even be better. And so there's no doubt about it that Mercedes will have a strong engine next year. Will it be as strong as the Honda or even stronger than the Honda? We can debate that. But it's certainly not going to be at a disadvantage to the Honda. Now, having said that, I do think that resources are also going to be made available should Verstappen have to, for example, buy out his contract. I'm pretty sure Mercedes will I think Toto Wolff wants him bad enough that they'll make that happen if the need arises, that they can buy out that portion of the contract from Red Bull and that Verstappen will come over. So even though, as I said, by the numbers, I probably would be inclined to go with Aston Martin, I'm going to say that if he's going to leave Red Bull, he's probably going to end up at Mercedes. And there's not even an iota of doubt in my mind that if Verstappen was to call Toto Wolff in the morning and say, okay, I've made up my mind, it's a done deal. Russell is out. He'll be kicked to the curb without even a second thought by Toto. So it's gonna be an interesting next few races, I think, because I think that Verstappen situation, if it's going to be changing from Red Bull, it's gonna be soon, because that exit clause, I think, is going to be active. It's coming into that window now of activation, and so whether that decision, however, will be made public at that time, I don't know. But because like what Hamilton did with Ferrari, where he announced it very early in the year that he was leaving Mercedes, I think that created a lot of discomfort and stuff within the team. I don't know if Verstappen would do that with Red Bull, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, interesting race. Let's see what happens going forward.